Yeah, I moved. I was born in Iran, and I was like three years old when we came, and we were in Pennsylvania briefly for a few years. My dad was getting trained in the steel industry, and that used to be a big, steel town. And then we went back to Iran, and then for a few years, and when the revolution took place, we moved back to the United States, and we're in Pennsylvania briefly, but then quickly, because of the cold winters and being very different than the Iranian climate, moved to California, where Northern California actually, where a lot of my family lives. I grew up in mostly Palo Alto, actually, by Stanford. My dad went to school there, and I'm a California guy, but fortunately, my parents, it was really important to them for us to speak Farsi in the house and celebrate a lot of the traditions, like Persian New Year, and there's just, my parents love Iran and are very proud of their heritage, and that was transferred to me. It was difficult at first being in. Because when we came, actually, it was during the hostage crisis, and I remember being detained in customs, and and now I know in retrospect, but I remember seeing my dad's face, and he couldn't believe, like just a few years before, everything, people were great, everyone was, friendly to each other, and then all of a sudden, this huge shift in attitude, and it didn't make sense to him too. It's like, I'm coming here because I don't want to be part of that. I actually did a one-person show as my thesis project here, called Transplant, and it's a wonderful thing that they have here in the MFA acting program, where you are supposed to create your own one-person show, 30-minute piece, and I don't even know if they're still doing it or not, because Mel is always, changing it and keeping it fresh. But that show that I did was essentially about the Iranian James Bond, and when I was a kid, I loved James Bond, and I was playing James Bond, and someone told me I couldn't do it because I'm like from Iran and I'm a terrorist, and I was like, what? How's this person seeing me? Like I'm into Dukes of Hazzard and James Bond, like what are they talking about? And that always kind of stuck with me, and so like I kind of always, and I think it helped me as an actor, because I always kind of felt I was separate a little bit, and would be careful to kind of observe how people were taking me in, and so kind of became, really good at observing human behavior, just as a defense mechanism. But in the show, I played James Bond, and I actually James Bond in the show, and I go, and this event that I was telling you is in the show, where this kid tells me that I can't do it, and then I become James Bond. I go into Iran to blow up this part of this oil refinery in Karg Island, and while I'm there, I get shot, and you think James Bond is dead, and then he's in treatment, like kind of recovering, and in the U.S., and you don't know how he got there, and then all of a sudden he starts to have this kind of breakdown, and you find out through the course of the thing that his heart he had a heart transplant in Iran. That was the only way he was going to stay alive, and it was this Iranian heart. And he starts like speaking Farsi and like craving Iranian food, and like having all these kind of urges for Iranian culture, and he basically has an identity crisis, and that kind of really mirrored how I felt a lot of the times, and I feel really blessed and fortunate to have the two cultures, because on my good days I get to kind of pick what's good from both of them, and I think that kind of creates a more full and rich life, Yeah, I don't know. My desire to be an actor, I feel like even if the Iranian Revolution hadn't happened, and I, wasn't experiencing, racism in the United States early on, for being Iranian, though I thought of myself as American, and having that confusion and stuff, I would have probably been an actor some way or another. When I was a kid, I just loved to take on, I loved watching TV, but mostly I kind of loved playing those things out. So thank God for commercials, because whatever I'd be watching, and whenever there was a commercial, like on a movie or something, then that was my time to perform and act it out around the house. Like a lot of Iranian families, we're Iranians are really into academics, and want a lot of Iranians are either engineers, doctors, or lawyers, and I always had to kind of fight within that, because I just my dad's an engineer and a computer scientist, and he's a brilliant guy, and he's got 2 masters from Stanford, but I have these artistic leanings, and I think my dad, it's within him as well. But my mom certainly kind of encouraged. She's got this incredible laugh, as that's very distinct, and she passed that on to me. And she's got this amazing sense of humor, and she was always into kind of singing and playing and having fun, and kind of encouraging me to do that as well. So I think it's just that urge was there. It's just there. And I think anyone who is a performer can probably pinpoint a time when they became aware of it, but not necessarily how it came about. It just was there was nothing, because it's so difficult to do this. And I definitely had to, my parents were kind of shocked that I wanted to pursue this. They were definitely not for it at first, because they were kind of concerned about my future, and they don't know, what are you going to do? How are you going to do this? And what happened was, I was at a conservatory up north in the Bay Area that I auditioned to get in, and they were like, oh my God, what's going to happen? And I was in this production of Don Juan in Hell by George Bernard Shaw. It's the 3rd act of Man and Superman. And I was playing Don Juan, and there's this long, lengthy speech that he has comparing this and that, and I really worked hard on it, and they came to the performance, and the first day when I did that, everyone right after I did that speech, I got a standing ovation. And I remember waiting for them to stop during that, and I looked over and I could see both my mom and my dad. They were kind of touched, and I think my dad was crying. And so I just knew, I was like, okay, they're going to be supporting me, through this, and this was worth it. They're actually now my biggest fans. It's like Sundance. They were incredible being there, and just, just loving it.